I know that everybody's trying to really figure out how to become the next version of themselves in 2025 and moving forward. So with that being said, what's kind of the direction from each of your expertise niches that you're seeing in the market, and how do we start combining these to really increase our business? So I just kind of want to kick us off, and we can just riff from there because I know you guys all have a lot to add. So John, maybe you want to get us started.
Yeah, I want to just kind of set the stage a little bit here. Obviously, the opportunity with working with Jacob and Elizabeth, and the amazing stuff that they're doing, especially pushing the listing and luxury side of a focus, of their business, which is just remarkable. And if you guys are not in Jacob's 0 to 30 luxury, basically if he had to start over from scratch, how he would build luxury, get on that email sequence. It's free, 30 days of email. It is fantastic. Have so many clients across the country looking to break into luxury, utilizing just his format alone. So definitely get into that. But also, opportunity to work with Georgia for quite some time, and then going back almost kind of day one with Phil. So it's just really cool to see, the human that he's evolved into and become. And, no matter what he focuses on is definitely magical and worth paying attention. And really, in my opinion, from seeing everything across the industry, he is definitely at the forefront of alignment of your business into utilizing AI. And one of the things that I just want to throw out there, 13 years in the one-on-one coaching space, right at 17,000 one-on-one coaching calls. And I think by the time we have Kitchen Table in June, we'll be at 10,000 hours of one-on-one coaching. I've seen a lot. There's not much that I haven't either personally dealt with or helped clients work through. But the number one thing that I see is an execution problem. And it's kind of this concept of agents are fantastic at building half-built bridges, right? Fantastic at starting a project and just abandoning it for who knows whatever reason. And, if that's you, I think listening to kind of what we're going to talk about and give you guys a framework and a bridge to the front end of your business and what the consumer and your potential clients, what they experience and feel with your brand and the process that you take them through. So hopefully being able to give you guys, a completely fully built bridge on the front end with, my opinion, who are the best in the game when it comes to storytelling and social media, applied to the best in the game of how to immerse and align your business with AI as you build out this process. And when you think of unique process, what really separates it is the phases that the client works through. So we'll kind of tee the stage here for Georgia to where she kind of steps in, which is that if initial contact that the client and the consumer has with your brand, and that is through, as we know, it's all through social media right now. And so how are you standing out and really grabbing the attention? And it's the direction where we all have to be thinking about where our marketing is going. Okay. Phil can sit here for, all day and talk about the ways to really immerse and align our business with AI. And I think one of the things to think about is what is not going to change in the industry moving forward in the next 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. What is not going to change? What has stood the test of time? And that's storytelling. And I know Sam's on here, and it's something that Sam and I have been talking about for a couple of years. Obviously, same thing talking about with Georgia. But storytelling is never going to change, but it is one of the most important things in our content and in social and our marketing efforts. Is if you want to become world-class at something, become world-class at storytelling. And there is nobody better. And I always say, Georgia is just a storyteller that just happens to sell real estate. So that is kind of her business is built around that, and everything she does comes through the lens of story. And I'll let her kind of tee that up. But I want to give you the framework of when you're thinking through building a process as you move them through phases. And so, the initial phase, they have the experience with you, they engage with you. Now we have a conversation. The conversation leads to an appointment. An appointment leads to face. How are we going to articulate our value of why you should do business with us? Hey, let's go forward. We agree you've got the best system and process to help me accomplish what I'm wanting to accomplish. Then we get into the fulfillment side of things. That's the back of the house. We just want to focus on the front of the house using social media, storytelling, knowing your ideal client, and how do you align all of that with the power of AI. That's what we want to be able to try to pour into you guys during this time together today. And as you move through each of the phases, there's two things that I want you to think about. When you determine we're going from this phase to this phase, and it could be engagement, now we have a conversation. That could be one phase. To move from one phase to the next, you got to check two boxes. One, you've got to get their commitment. So how are you getting their commitment? Maybe they accept the calendar invite to come to the appointment, right? That would be a commitment. Then what is the deliverable that you're going to deliver to them for giving a commitment to move to the next phase? Okay. That's how I want you to guys to think about as you're progressing and moving people through your experience, to be able to ultimately get face to face where you have the opportunity to articulate your value and why they would want to do business, because you are uniquely qualified to help them solve whatever it is they want to solve. So I just want to lay that foundation as we start to talk about storytelling, we start talking about social media, we start talking about AI, how that fits into your process. Okay. Does that make sense? We tracking? Yes or yes? Yes?
Kraken.
Okay.
Can we get a thumbs up,
Cracking.
everybody?
Got some thumbs up.
All right.
Cool. Awesome. Georgia, I would love, just because, Phil's going to layer in throughout the whole thing, right? Because he can add little touch throughout the whole thing, right? To help us move a lot faster. Georgia, you're the first experience that they have, right? And I think maybe kind of set the stage in how you look at social media and how you come from a storytelling perspective and why it's so important to become world-class at telling story.
For sure. And thank you so much, John, for the introduction, and Elizabeth and Jacob for having me here. Phil, it's so good to see you. All right. So I'm going to go with the theme that you're kind of shaping today, is kind of getting like halfway there, getting to the finish line, how to kind of pull maybe some conversations out of thin air, I guess is the best way to say it. So storytelling for me, stories just come naturally to me. That's how I'm best at communicating. And, if you look back in time, it's the #1 way to make people connect with you. And if it's online or in person or on the phone, you can build a connection any which way you want to, as long as you have a purpose with it, right? And I think you already tell stories as it is, but are you purpose driven with those stories? And I found that when I actually thought about it and dialed that in with my entire process, from the moment the phone rings to how I send an email to how they perceive me online, I want that story to build trust with how they see me. So to start from the beginning, I think when I first started telling stories was stories on Instagram, right? Showing my day today, showing people that I am out there, I am selling houses, I'm talking to clients, and sharing the stories that I get back. I mean, there could be a funny thing that happens, there could be a weird scenario, but those stories are already building connection just from the smallest amount of just posting on these small little stories that you're doing daily on your Instagram. But to fast forward it to potentially getting that client and reeling them in, the story of your brand has to be very present as well. And actually, a couple of years ago, John had me look into really what my brand stands for and what the company I'm trying to build and what story it tells. And the biggest thing to get a client is to build trust. So I always want to show people that I'm trusting, that I'm showing up online every day, that I'm showing up in the phones, and every day I'm building that story of trust within my brand. And it goes from A to Z, from the moment you call me to the moment we put a sold sign on your front lawn to the moment we follow up a year later. That trust and that story that I built around my brand is weaved all the way through. So that is one way that, I'm intentional about how I pass a story along when I'm talking with clients. And I'm trying to think, John, how I can kind of weave this into the
Yeah, and I
Oh,
think it's important to also focus. We're focusing in on the listing side, right? This is
yeah,
kind of what we're talking about, the process with the listing side. And the reason, and I will die on this hill, is because when you truly understand your value, your dollar per hour, there is nothing that's going to pay you more dollar per hour in this game than focused on working with motivated sellers. And I don't, we can debate this all day long. Put a stopwatch to it. And the actual amount of stopwatch time in working with a motivated seller versus stopwatch time, even working with a motivated buyer, it's 1 to 4, 1 to 5, 1 to 6 time ratio. And so, like, if you like working for free, then so be it. But if you really value and you're really trying to optimize and get the greatest return on your time, ROT, right? We talk about return on investment, but what about your return on time? There is nothing in this game that's going to give you a greater return on time than working with motivated sellers. So that's kind of what we're talking about with this phase. So Phil, interject at any time, because throughout this whole process, you're like, "Yep, come in here, think about this," and it's more about alignment with what Phil brings to the table. But like, Georgia, on the very front end, right? Kind of talk about, like, you have a listing opportunity, you use your listing videos to get other listings, right? You position it and why it's so important. But as you create this story and this consistency in the process, it all starts with that initial interaction. So maybe,
yeah.
kind of share, like you're talking about, why story was important, but how you go about your storytelling process.
Yeah. So what I really found is that logic tells, but emotion sells. And when I am talking to my sellers to actually even get them decide to work with me, I try to make all the emotion come out of them and the feels about why they purchased that property and what they're going to miss most about it. And they tell me the story of why they actually are thinking of selling, but what they're going to miss most about it. And I'm able to take everything that they've told me from a moment of meeting and shaking their hand and touring the home and asking a series of questions to shape a story of how we're actually going to work together. But then I'm able to illustrate that out in video and actually sell them on a video that I'm going to create for them before it's even developed and before we even have the listing agreement signed. And that is just how powerful it is when you really zero in on that type of marketing and you buy them into that before they're even ready to sign with you. And when it happens and when you actually do shoot that video and you go through the process of developing that video with them, which could be things like this, when you're at the property, look around and you got to think of the person that's going to purchase this property, right? And it's easy to just kind of put a hook in the beginning of a video and hope that hook's going to attract someone for 3 seconds. It's way harder to actually shape a video around a story, a beginning, a middle, and an end. But that takes people on a journey with you, and you can keep their attention sometimes from 3 seconds to 5 minutes. And one thing I know for sure is when you can get your average watch time up to that long of a period, you've not only sold that potential buyer on that house, they've actually sold them on you. And the referrals and the amount of listings that you get from one listing video by taking that attention, going into detail, and trying to structure it around a story that's going to capitalize somebody, that it's going to take somebody on that emotional journey. It just creates so many more listing opportunities that you don't even know what to do with at the end of the day. And that is one of the coolest things, is the aftermath of taking these hard steps in the beginning. And once you do it over and over again, and I have a pretty good framework that I can share with everybody at the rally of, beginning, middle, and end, and how you can weave these stories. And you got to think about it this way. When I think about a story, I think of Once Upon a Time, a long time ago. It's not that. It really is looking at this as is it a fun story? Is it an emotional story? Is it something that is going to pull emotion at the end of the day? And that's what gets people's attention. And that's what makes people remember the brand, your voice, your sound, and everything extra you put into it. And it's incredible how quickly this process can transform your online listing videos. It can transform your listing process to be a completely something different that just generates more listings and more listings and more listings. I think our listing processes are focused on getting the listing versus using your listing process to equivalent it, 10 times and maximize your exposure to get more listings and just become a #1 listing agent in your entire area.